All right, so this presentation is on SAT testing, and my name is Mackenzie Lamberson. So first of all, who takes the SAT and who gives the SAT? So ideally, all 11th grade students are going to take the SAT. However, we know it's not always possible to have 100% of students take the SAT. There may be students that have disabilities that prevent them from participating or have excessive absences where they've missed all the testing opportunities. So the goal is that at least 95% of students are going to take the SAT their 11th grade year. The SAT is given by schools who train employees on proper testing practices. So only a trained SAT testing administrator may give the SAT. A sub or a teacher that has not received the training for the SAT may not give the test. Who does the assessment serve and who does it benefit? So federal law mandates that Indiana have a statewide accountability assessment, and Indiana is starting to use the SAT to satisfy this requirement. This serves both the federal government and the state of Indiana by collecting important data on student performance, which can then ideally be used to determine the effectiveness of Indiana's educational systems. So Indiana will receive a grade on how it is doing as a state in educating its students. And the SAT results are going to comprise about 40% of the state's grade in this area. So to continue on with that, this test also serves students because the SAT is often required for entrance into many colleges or universities. And so providing that to students is going to help put them on their way to continuing their education. And the SAT allows results to be sent to up to 4 colleges or universities chosen by the student. So again, this is assisting in their future academic careers, and it is offered for free during their 11th grade year. So it's great to get them, on their way to meeting their requirements to send them to university. Additionally, the SAT may be used to satisfy one of the graduation pathway requirements. So there's many different pathways that students can use to get to graduation. Some of them require the SAT, some of them don't. And so the SAT, while not required for graduation, can be used to satisfy some of the requirements for graduation, depending on the pathway chosen. So it can get students one step closer to graduating. Indiana and the federal government, again, benefit through receiving this important accountability data that shows how well they are serving their students. And then, again, students benefit through being provided this exam for free their 11th grade year, which helps them prepare for college. Future students and families also benefit, even the ones that might not be taking it right now, because when Indiana and the federal government receive these results, which may point out deficiencies, the goal is that the state uses this data to improve the educational system. So future students hopefully, will receive an improved education. So what is the nature of the assessment? How does the SAT actually work? Well, there's 3 sections. There's reading and writing and math, but we generally separate it into 2. So we put reading and writing together and then math separately, and which may be subdivided further. So the math has a no calculator portion and a calculator portion. The SAT is multiple choice, typically using bubble sheet, so where you take the number 2 pencil and you fill in A, B, C, or D. We subdivide this into 2 timed sections with 180 total testing minutes, with breaks added into that, as most people can't sit for 180 minutes and test all at one time without a break. So there are breaks added in there for getting a drink of water, having a snack, using the restroom, things like that. This is free in 11th grade, and it can be taken again for a fee, typically about $60, I think, but cost waivers are available for students that may need that. So how is the SAT graded? Well, the SAT is scored as a number between 400 and 1,600, where both sections, so the reading and writing section and the math section, are added together to make that score. The average score in 2019 was 1,050. So to kind of put this in reference, most colleges require at least a score of about 950, but some more competitive schools might be looking for something around 1,300 or more. To meet high school graduation requirements, if a student chooses one of the pathways that requires the SAT, schools are typically looking for about a 480 in the reading and writing section and a 530 in the math section is required for the graduation pathway that has that. So what are some of the assumptions of the SAT? Well, the SAT first assumes that students can read, as they need to read the problem and read the answers in order to choose one. It assumes that they are English speaking, as this is by default given in English. It assumes that they're able to hold a pencil and mark answers for an extended period of time. Even with breaks, it can be a long day. It does a lot of sitting, a lot of reading all at once, and they've got to be able to hold the pencil, mark answers, and remain quiet and focused for those extended periods of time. They're testing with other students, so they cannot be a distraction, talking, walking around, or anything like that. It assumes that they had a nutritious breakfast so that they are able to perform at the top of their game, and that they are able to go without food or drink during testing. Eating or drinking is not required during testing. Is not allowed during testing. It is allowed during breaks, but during actual test taking, not allowed. The SAT also assumes that students will try their best rather than answering randomly. Now, this can be difficult for some students, as sometimes you just have a bad day and they may feel like just answering randomly to get it all over with. But when the SAT is looking at their results, they are assuming that each student answered to the best of their ability. If any of these assumptions are not met, however, especially in the case of disabilities or English language learning students, for example, exceptions may be arranged in order to allow these students to still test. So this may include things like providing translations, providing extended time, having read aloud audio, or other accommodations in order to meet the needs of that specific student. So let's look at some of the larger contexts of this assessment. So the political context, Indiana does use this test to meet the statewide accountability requirement, and they are using this beginning in 2023 to fulfill this requirement for Indiana. Indiana is again required to have at least 95% of students participate in this test in order to track how Indiana's educational system is serving students and in order to hold Indiana accountable for having an appropriate education system. Economic context. So the SAT costs about $60 for students to register for if they want to take it outside of the free offering during 11th grade. So it can, be significant for some families. There are waivers available. Indiana currently spends about $46.2 million per year on standardized testing. Not all of this is the SAT. Of course, this includes things like iLearn or iStep and all the testing that Indiana does, but it is expensive to provide widespread standardized testing. So the SAT test is going to take up a portion of this budget here. Historically, Indiana has not used the SAT to meet the statewide accountability requirement, but we are beginning to do so starting 2023. Indiana previously used other steps such as iLearn and iStep to meet this requirement while still administering the SAT tests anyways because it was important for students who are going to college. So we are just trying to kind of be a little bit more efficient in the way that we administer these tests so we can use the SAT test to meet these requirements without having to do excessive testing. The SAT has been around since 1926, so it is, something that we have been using in the U.S. for a long time. And that brings me to the sociocultural context. So students of all races and all cultures across the nation take the SAT. This is not limited to Indiana. It's given in every state as it's important for college admissions, and other states may be using it as their accountability measure as well. Any student that may have an economic need can again apply for a fee waiver so they are not held back so that they are still able to retake it if they are not happy with their original grade without having to pay the fee.